All righty. Let me do this. Okay. Is everything good, Angela? I can't see people's faces while I'm running the tech. Oh, did I freeze?
My audio was muted. Yeah, everything looks good.
Gotcha, perfect. So hello, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes up until like maybe around 6:03-ish, and then we'll get started right away. So until then, we're actually going to drop our LinkedIn profiles as well as the speakers or panelists' LinkedIn profiles in the chat. Just so if you guys want to, you can connect with all of us. How is everyone doing today? If you want to type in the chat where you're coming from or where you're at right now in the Zoom world, that would be pretty awesome. Kind of want to get a sense of where our audience is from. Great. California. Woo. Chicago. Okay, gotcha. We have a national audience today. Kentucky. Nice, nice. Texas. Very cool. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And I guess people will keep on joining. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our workshop, Detoxifying Work Cultures with Soft Skills and How to Build Better Multicultural Teams. So before we get started, we want to thank ALPFA Boston for hosting this event, as well as NAAAP Boston and the Lawrence Partnership for making this possible. My name is Chris, and I'm from Pyxai, a tech startup devoted to highlighting soft skills in both the recruitment and learning development spaces. Along with me is Angela, our COO from Pyxai, and we will both be leading and moderating this workshop. So a little shameless plug here, but let me introduce why we developed this workshop. Pyxai has helped companies source, identify, and develop top talent, as well as reduce turnover with our socially conscious video interviewing and assessment technology. During our HR tech journey, we have gained insights from HR leaders, accredited behavioral industrial psychologists, surveys, our clients, and most importantly, job seekers. With research dating back since the 1950s, we have accumulated 70+ years worth of data and research that we would like to share with you. As we believe in taking part in a collective mission of bettering the world just a smidge more than we found it, we want to present with you some of our insights to help build better workplaces for all. So without further ado, let's get started with our workshop. So this is our agenda. We'll be dividing our workshop into 3 parts. The first will be about gaining a baseline understanding of what soft skills are. And then the second part will take a hands-on approach to identifying soft skills in ourselves and others. So if you have a pad and pencil, keep it handy so that you can engage with the microsimulations in this section. And then last, but certainly not least, we'll have our panel discussion with our distinguished guests from NAAAP, the Lawrence Partnership, and our CEO from Pyxai. So let's dive right on in. Soft skills fundamentals. Soft skills refer to our capability to interact and manage the relationship with ourselves and with others. There are 3 major categories, the first of which is cognitive skills, or how we think. Examples of cognitive skills include problem solving, creativity, or critical thinking. The second is intrapersonal skills, or how we relate with ourselves. This includes time management, organizational skills, self-regulation, and conation, which is our drive to do what we want to do. And the last general soft skill category, interpersonal skills, concerns how we relate with others. Examples of this include communication, teamwork, or negotiation. These are the three general categories that make up what we call soft skills. So if there are soft skills, then there certainly have to be hard skills, right? So although this might be basic for some of our viewers, we just want to go over what that difference is. So hard skills are quantifiable skills that can be demonstrated via performance or a show of experience. These are things we usually see on a traditional resume. It can include accreditation, so degrees from universities or certificates. Hard skills can also be referred to as technical skills, such as coding or machine operation. Soft skills, though technically nowadays one can now receive certificates for them, are more nebulous in nature, as it has to do more with how well we can perform daily responsibilities through how we manage our interactions with others, as well as how we regulate our own behavior according to both low and high stress situations. That being said, then are soft skills the same as personality traits? So the answer is, though they are interrelated, they are actually not the same. When folks learn about soft skills for the first time, many are confused by their similarity to character traits. There is an assumption that soft skills are something that you either already have or need to develop over time through life experience. As such, many times we fall into the trap of believing that soft skills are innate and intrinsic, something that is part of our nature. However, this actually isn't the case. Soft skills refer to capabilities that can be learned and developed. So think, for example, like communication, which can be honed via practicing public speaking through taking courses or perhaps joining your local Toastmasters chapter. On the other hand, personality traits are intrinsic preferences that we feel are natural towards how we perceive ourselves, others, and our environment. So you can think of personality traits as things related to MBTI, being an extrovert versus an introvert, being sensing versus intuitive. While both personality traits and soft skills are equally important, soft skills benefit from being able to be learned and honed, which has caused them to become an increasingly valuable asset in the workplace. Though some personality traits can simplify our ability to learn soft skills, for example, somebody with an extroverted personality may find it easier to learn communication and leadership skills, they are not the same as soft skills. Our personality may help indicate what job we might like to do, but our soft skills define how good we are at it. So why are soft skills important? Reason number one, the modern workplace is intrapersonal. So 49% of working Americans have thought about leaving their current jobs because they feel that their workplace is toxic, which is often due to poor, lack of, and/or miscommunication. Therefore, the modern workplace requires interpersonal skills, skills such as cultural sensitivity, collaboration. These skills are highly valued in the workplace and vital to successful leadership and management. High competencies and soft skills ensure a productive, collaborative, and healthy work environment, which is crucial for organizations in an increasingly competitive world. Another reason is career progression. So ICEN's Hiring Insights report, this report found that 94% of recruiting professionals believe an employee with stronger soft skills has a better chance of being promoted to a leadership position than an employee with more years of experience but weaker soft skills. Reason number three, in this day and age, customers and clients demand soft skills. So as a result of a competitive marketplace, consumers have a plethora of options to choose from. As a result, our consumer-driven market has influenced business best practices by demanding great customer service and the ability to relate with clients at a human level. Reason number four, the future workplace will rely on soft skills, and simultaneously, soft skills are actually extremely difficult to automate. So automation and AI will result in a greater proportion of jobs relying on soft skills. Advances in technology have caused tasks that require hard skills to actually decline. This makes soft skills a key differentiator in the workplace. A study by Deloitte, Access Economics, predicts that soft skill intensive occupations will account for 2/3 of all jobs by 2030. And reason number five, soft skills are in high demand by recruiters. Jobs requiring high levels of social interaction grew nearly by 12% as a share of the US labor force in the past couple of years. One of the main reasons behind this is due to the fact that it was found that long-term job success significantly depended on soft skills. Yes, you guys will also receive a recording of this. There will be a recording. So this slide actually shows a study that spanned 80 years that shows that specific significance of soft skills. Sorry, excuse me. After observing and collecting data on workers for 8 decades, Hunter and Schmidt, whom published one of the most influential publications on predictive talent selection methods, determined that the most important factor for long-term job success were a combination of what they call general mental abilities, or cognitive skills, coupled with integrity. So this is also known as soft skills. Interestingly, education was the least contributing factor, while hard skills accounted only for 13%. That being said, the pink elephant that Hunter and Schmidt found was that a whopping 59% contributed to soft skills for long-term job success, which might then behoove us to pay attention to those said soft skills. Bring us to the next part of our workshop on identifying soft skills. So take it away, Angela.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Chris. So we're now going to get to the meat of the matter here, because we can talk until we're blue in the face about soft skills, but the bottom line is that in order for us to grow and develop, we must know how to identify these soft skills, not only in others, but also in ourselves. And this requires really honesty, objectivity, and being open to feedback from others. So let's get to work on these observation skills, which also happens to be a soft skill. If you guys have a pen and paper to jot down notes, that'll be great. Next slide, please.
Oh.
So interest in soft skills has increased over the years. The more research that is done is the more people are convinced and understand the importance of these soft skills. Soft skills make for great team players and great managers, which is the foundation of many great companies and organizations. So this is why there's a huge investment in learning and development with soft skills right now. But let's put soft skills into context here. Next slide. When the first industrial revolution kicked in, people used water and steam power to mechanize production. Fast forward to the third industrial revolution, which we're in, we use IT and electronics to automate production, meaning that we could practically do anything with these gadgets, really. The fourth industrial revolution, which is quickly approaching, builds upon the third one. We're heading quickly towards full digitalization. The future of work is a blend of machine automation and human ingenuity. Without a doubt, rapid change is a constant, and the workforce will have to adjust our different skill sets to keep up. The answer, of course, lies in soft skills. This means that we also need to increase our adaptability skills, problem solving, innovation, creativity, just to name a few. Most importantly, next slide, soft skills are transferable. So if you're a good communicator at work, it is likely the case that you will be a good communicator in your personal life as well. These skills impact all aspects of a person's life. In short, we need soft skills for a hard world. Next slide, please. So now that Chris walked us through a basic understanding of soft skills, let's take a look at what this looks like in practice. So we're going to watch an animated video about a hypothetical team. Afterwards, we'll discuss how we can identify soft skills within ourselves and also in others. It may be helpful to get a pen and paper. Video, please.
You're a manager managing Tom, Peggy, and Dwayne. Tom is very resourceful, a great problem solver, but is tardy and unreliable. Is an extrovert and very social. He likes to be the life of the party. When in conflict with others, he tends to hold his ground, and it takes a while to see different perspectives. At times gets into heated discussions with Peggy. Peggy is very structured, punctual, very focused, has great analytical skills. She does not adapt well. Is an introvert and has a hard time expressing herself. Comes across as distant to other team members. Dwayne is a great communicator, but is disorganized and doesn't plan effectively. He is very creative and has out-the-box thinking. Great innovator. Socializes with everyone, is a great team member, but does not necessarily display leadership tendencies.
Thanks for that, Chris. So let's break down the soft skills of Tom, Peggy, and Dwayne. As assets, we have Tom, who is flexible, a problem solver, and is resourceful. Peggy manages her time very well, is focused, and is a good critical thinker. Dwayne communicates well, is creative, innovates, and builds good relationships. Areas for improvement include time management and conflict management for Tom, adaptability, flexibility, and communication skills for Peggy. And Dwayne should improve his organizational and planning skills and also increase his, his confidence. Next slide, please. So, personal development is a lifelong, ongoing process, assessing our lives and our values, and then increasing our skill sets to reach our potential. In general, this process begins with the self. We must be self-aware of our own strengths and area for improvements. Without this awareness, stagnation takes over. After, if we're honest with ourselves, we should seek feedback from others around us to gain a different perspective. Excuse me. Let's take Tom as an example. Let's say he hears rumors that he's being rude. And as a side note, guys, rumors and gossip on the job could be utilized as a positive and seen as catalysts for change for ourselves. That type of talk generally highlights what people are doing wrong. So back to Tom, if he doesn't see that he's being rude to Peggy, then he can ask Dwayne, do you think I was being rude with Peggy? And Dwayne can say, well, yeah, dude, like you raised your voice at her and your tone was stern and cold. That's cold. So this should prompt Tom to self-reflect and look for internal motivations. Like, why am I rude to Peggy? Do I have reasons to act like this with her? Let's say that after analyzing, Tom finds out that he interprets her lack of social skills as rude and then reacts to her in the same manner he perceives her. Many people do this, an eye for an eye type of thinking. The last step is for Tom to actually put himself in Peggy's shoes and consider her perspective and feelings. So after going through this cycle, Tom should be able to begin modifying his behavior towards Peggy, contributing to the detoxification of the team. Next. So now that we have established a cycle for self-improvement with soft skills, let's explore the individuals in the video and how they can help themselves, as well as ideas for the managers or the leader of the team to help in this process. Next slide, please. To begin, Tom's environment has to have a low tolerance level of tardiness and unreliability. If the environment is too lax and he's able to get away with these kinds of things, then it's easier for Tom to not be aware that time management is an issue for him. Otherwise, Tom will continue to do what he's done with no problem. There is no problem for him. The same goes for navigating conflict with other team members. If people tolerate it, then he won't know that it's not okay. So in Tom's case, his manager and his teammates are the first line of defense to provide this catalyst for Tom to change his attitudes. If he's unable to see this area of improvement for himself. So timely feedback and questions around his performance when problems arises is like a heated discussion with Peggy, for example, is crucial for Tom to begin to receive that feedback so that he can become aware in this process. If after this type of intervention, like on the job feedback, Tom is unresponsive or uncooperative, then this is when a formal PIP or performance improvement plan should be executed to hold Tom accountable. And this, by the way, should apply to all team members. When we allow these types of behavior to slip by because, let's say, he's the best at what he does, or she's super critical or important to the team, this is when you open the door to empower toxicity to thrive in our teams. Next slide, please, Chris. So similar to Tom, if no one gives Peggy feedback, then she might not know that she creates friction with her behavior. Her manager and her teammates are the first line of timely feedback to nudge Peggy in the right direction. After she becomes self-aware of the improvement areas, she should research strategies to improve her adaptability skills and communication skills. Peggy's manager, on the other hand, can help by encouraging and coaching Peggy. In other words, reinforcing the process of change. Next. Lastly, we have Dwayne. Dwayne can begin self-improvement by researching causes of low confidence and how he is able to increase confidence within himself. He can see increased organizational skills and criticism from his teammates as ways for him to improve his work and in turn himself. A key component in Dwayne's analysis in this case is his cultural and ethnic background and how this facets of him as an individual affects his outlook on things like time management and also his confidence levels. Extracting this level of detail from Dwayne is super important to fully understand him as an individual. This is something that his manager and team members should be mindful of. Dwayne managers, on the other hand, should support him by helping him break down tasks and delegate work to others if he's stressed. His action on the video indicates that he's likely stressed, and a good manager addresses stress management with their team members. Lastly, Dwayne manager must be careful to pose criticism as a positive. In other words, learning opportunities to help shift his mindset from defeating to uplifting. Next slide, please. So most people use a subjective method of identifying soft skills. So this sounds like, he looks confident, or she appears smart, or they seem pretty responsible. A better method would be to learn and understand these skills, including the different levels of competencies. And in this way, you're able to better analyze and categorize when you need to identify soft skills. Lastly, the best method is to use a scientifically backed method, like a situational judgment test or specialized assessments like the ones that Pyxai produces. Next. So many companies hire based on mostly external factors like education, experience, appearance, or how well the job seeker market themselves. However, people get fired for mostly their lack of soft skills like low motivation, poor communication, or low conscientiousness. So really and truly, guys, this flow should actually be reversed. Next. Throughout this presentation, we've been giving ideas as to how to diffuse and nuggets, how to diffuse toxic behavior or attitudes at work. However, if you walk away with only one thing is that the root of the majority of the workplace toxicity has its root in miscommunication. In other words, the message sent wasn't the message received, or lack of communication, not saying anything at all. And lastly, poor communication, giving incorrect information in this case. We all must be vigilant on how well we communicate with others. For example, when I'm tired, I have a higher chance of miscommunicating. So don't catch me on a tired day. When we are upset, we tend to say things that we don't mean. So it's a good idea to talk after we settle down and after our emotional triggers are under control. Empathy plays a huge role in positive and effective multiculturalism at work. There are some foundational human aspects we all share. We all want to belong. We all desire to thrive or succeed. We all have some type of familiar structure in our lives. So when we connect with others on a human level, the divisions that we create, like race, ethnicity, or languages, become less of a factor. Next one. So with recruiting in mind now, let's check out another simulation where we are now recruiting for an additional team member to the team, to add to the team of Tom, Peggy, and Dwayne. Let's take a look. Chris?
You're a manager interviewing the following job candidates in hopes to add another member to your team. The first is Jay. Jay is a very motivated individual. He seems very driven to get the position and is committed to work for the company. He has demonstrated proficiency at his previous roles and produces quality work on time. He is curious and asks lots of questions. He prefers to be an individual contributor and is not a great collaborator. Secondly is Susan, who is an outstanding organizer. She is very reliable and is a diligent planner. She regulates her emotions and stress very well, and as a consequence is able to resolve conflicts effectively. She has a reserved disposition, but displays qualities of accountability and personal ownership. Lastly, we have Mark. Mark is a wonderful team player. He is adaptable, flexible, and reliable with a natural inclination towards keeping deadlines and managing his time at work. Although he is adverse to making final decisions as he likes to be considerate of those around him, he is quite creative and brings many outside-of-the-box solutions to his work.
Great, thanks so much, Chris. So if we paid attention to the soft skills mentioned in the video, we'll see that Jay jumps out in the crowd of candidates. This is because he's super motivated to get the position, he has a great track record, and he's super eager to want to work for the company. Susan doesn't particularly stand out as an eager candidate, but demonstrates quiet, strong leadership. And Mark, who is outstanding contributor, not only excels at established processes, but is also great at creating new ones. Next slide, please. So who would you hire? You guys can say in the chat, but we're gonna break it down. So how about if we stick to a soft skills first approach? On the left, we have the candidates, and on the top row, we have a list of the soft skills the team is in need of. Let's cross-reference the job candidates versus soft skills, and the needs of the team. So there are a few things that we don't know or aren't clear as per the video. We know for sure that Dwayne likes to work on his own, so he's not a great team player. And here is what we do know of Mark and Dwayne. However, the only candidate that checks off all the boxes is Susan. Using this approach, we need to weed out the superficial, like appearances and interests, and we're able to focus on the skills that actually contribute to the upward mobility of our teams. And with that, Chris.
I must have been muted. So thank you so much, Angela. With this brings us to our panel discussion portion. So please join me in welcoming George Ramirez, Catherine Kelly, and Kurt Edwards. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. All righty. So our panel discussion will be conducted round robin style with a member of the panel taking the lead on a specific question. After the lead has answered, the other panelists may chime in with any supporting thoughts and comments or answers of their own. And I will do my best to moderate discussion to be respectful of our remaining allotted time. I'm going to go ahead and introduce each of the panelists. Catherine Kelly serves as the Chief Talent Officer for the National Association of Asian American Professionals, the national chapter, so NAAAP National, as well as provides leadership for NAAAP Boston. She leads diversity efforts for the talent acquisition team at Bright Horizons and is integral to their talent strategy. Fun fact, she is an avid New England sports fan and still loves Tom Brady, so hot take there. George Ramirez is the Executive Director of the Lawrence Partnership. which is a private public sector collaboration for the economic development and general improvement of the city of Lawrence. Always guided by a people-first strategy, George makes lasting changes to support small businesses and grow the workforce to create employment opportunities in the community. George is also an alumnus from UMass and Suffolk University Law School. Thank you so much, George. And Kurt Edwards is a serial entrepreneur that has founded 2 successful VC-backed startups, playing roles as both CTO and CEO. He started his entrepreneurial career as owner and operator of his own software development firm, working with organizations like the World Bank, Harvard, Google, MIT. Kurt also serves on the board of Junior Achievement, a nonprofit in the greater Boston area that focuses on inspiring and preparing the next generation to become world-class entrepreneurs. He is also the founder and CEO of Pyxai. So thank you, panelists, for being who you are and for joining our panel discussion. Let's have some fun. Shall we begin? So our first question is for Catherine. Personally, what would be the 1 or 2 key soft skills that have made an impact on the success of your professional career?
Thanks so much for having me. You know, I was thinking about this question, and I thought about a time that I was supporting a finance organization. The team that I was working on with were weaker with the intra and interpersonal personal abilities, but their problem-solving ability and their analytical skill set were really strong. What this created was I was focused in on building relationships in the inter and intra side, but not focused in on the problem-solving, the analytics that they were looking for. I really had to pivot and shift. And so my answer to this is problem solving and analytics were definitely something that I needed to lean into. What that created was my ability to identify the problem, and I managed conflict due to that. So I leaned in, communicated more. That created collaboration, which focused us in on the business goals of the team. It created stronger time management for all of us. It created engagement, which built up the intra and interpersonal skill sets of all involved. And ultimately, it allowed all of us to pivot, shift, and adapt and transition. So ultimately, within a short amount of time, we were goal-focused. We were working as one. We were communicating effectively with each other. We were proactively talking to each other. And we were focused in on business goals and got goals done faster. Does that help?
Most definitely. Thank you so much for your answer, Catherine. George, Kurt, would you like to chime in? I also posted the question on the chat for everyone to see.
I just want to say that I saw a question come across the chat where somebody said, was wondering how the soft skills could be used from a non-manager perspective. And I think Catherine just sort of hit that out of the park as sort of a non-manager, taking the initiative through communication and through the opportunity with the other staff to focus in on that. So I just, well done, Catherine.
Oh, thank you. You know, on that note, I think something that it's scary when you're not really nailing it with teams. It's scary. You feel unsafe and you tend to kind of decline. You know, you move backward, you stop communicating and such. In this case, fortunately, one of the business leaders reached out to me and said, can I give you some feedback? And that was humongous. So it created self-awareness of how I was coming forward within the team. I accepted the feedback. Initially, you know, sometimes you're defensive. Instead, in this case, because I really did feel as though I was failing, I accepted the self-awareness, accepted the feedback. And in doing so, you know, you shed that vulnerability and you just say, well, all of us want this business goal. So how can I get there? And through that self-awareness, refocused it. And then ultimately, like I say, we together leaned in on communication, focused in on the business goal. It developed all of our intra and interpersonal skill sets. And by the end of it, we were really a non-toxic, well-rounded, functioning team.
Great. Thank you so much for your answer, Catherine, and for your response, George. Yeah. I saw another question in the chat about recommendations and books. That's actually another question that's coming up later, so sit tight. So our next question is for Kurt. Share a time when you had to deal with a difficult individual, a boss or team member, and how you use your soft skills to successfully navigate through.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. This actually takes me back to the early days of my career. I worked for a large multinational organization, and I was actually promoted very early to be an IT manager. I remember back then, my boss actually, his recommendation to me was, try to push around individuals a little bit to get them motivated to work. Problem with that was that really was not my style, pushing around people. Secondly, I was in my mid-20s and I looked like I was 16 years old. And third problem there were individuals working in that organization on my team that had been with the company longer than I'd been alive, right? Definitely not the individuals that you wanna push around. One such individual on that team actually made a strong statement. He refused to take orders from a kid. This particular individual was a tremendous asset to the organization in terms of just the knowledge and experience that he brought, but had a really, really bad reputation of being just an extremely difficult person to deal with, really bad or toxic for the company's culture. So here I am, I'm tasked to be this individual's manager. It probably takes a laundry list of soft skills to actually overcome this one, but what I did and what worked for me was actually using empathy, right? Just bringing a compassionate approach to the situation. I kind of stopped to put myself or view life from his perspective. And here's what I really found in doing that. Here's an individual working 20 plus years for organization and doing dispensable and well compensated. He just never got the recognition that he needed. Also being somewhat socially awkward. He never got placed into leadership positions, and he felt somewhat that he wasn't living up to certain standards that he had set for himself. So once I was armed with these insights, I turned to using critical skills to figure out how do I break this person and get to be friendly with them. Second thing I knew he ate lunch by himself at his desk every single day. So one day I decided to grab a few slices of pizza and go hang out. And if I didn't get kicked out within the first 5 minutes, then I stood some chance. So I geeked out with him for maybe about 45 minutes, which is probably 40 minutes longer than most people would spend with him. And just taking a very, very compassionate approach, learn to understand his perspective on life, on the company, on his job, and really, really great relationship. I decided I was going to continue to do that every single week for the next few months. And he finally looked at me one day and said, you know what, you're not such a bad kid after all. Long story short, to sum that up, it turned out to be a really, really great working relationship with him. We ended up eventually nominating him for the company's star recognition program, which he did win, and proudly presented his trophy on his desk every day. And he just became a really, really awesome person for me to work with and learn from him, and more importantly, for the rest of the team. So that's my story.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Kurt. George, Catherine, did you want to chime in, or shall we move on? Gotcha. So question number 3, George, cultural sensitivity has been a spotlight topic as recent national events and movements have transpired. How have you and/or your organization responded to this topic of incorporating actionable DE&I into the workplace?
Right. Thank you very much, Chris. And I appreciate being part of this conversation. It's really informative. So I run a small business collaborative, and we don't have the biggest staff. It's me and two other people in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is about 80 to 90% Hispanic, and all three of us are of Hispanic descent. So we haven't had to put a lot of sort of policies in necessarily in place for the DEI, but one on the cultural side of this question, something came to mind about a month ago or more, and some of you, including those that are listening, participating, there were some fights at the high school in Lawrence. And the media was covering them every single day. They would take a video of a kid pushing a kid or what have you, and they would play them every single day for about a week. And they would start with, in Lawrence, Massachusetts, a largely Hispanic community. And I was like, geez, every single day at 5 a.m. I get up to have my cup of coffee, and this is what I got to, wake up to. And I had a conversation with the superintendent at the high school one day, and we were talking about some of the issues that were going on and how to address them. And she said, can you walk outside with me, because, it's the kids are going to be coming out soon. So as we walked outside and the kids were coming out, there were about 6 or 7 police officers out there. There was 2 or 3 television cameras that were focused on the front door, and they were looking for opportunities to get their B-roll so that they could play it on the news of this Hispanic community where fights were going on. And, I learned that fights are going on in every single high school across the Commonwealth. And a lot of it has to do because of the COVID and the lack of problem solving and social skills that the kids have had bottled up, being at home. And so I left there that day, and I had a meeting with my executive board of business folks. And I said, we got to respond to this. We got to really take a stand. And we wrote an op-ed to a number of large news organizations like the Boston Business Journal and a handful of others. And it was titled, "The Business Community Says Leave Our Kids Alone." And, it was a way to just highlight for the media, look, this happens everywhere. We don't want you to pick on Lawrence. We want you to move on, write a story about somebody else. Don't keep harping on the fact that it's a Hispanic community. It is a community like any other, with the same issues and challenges as everyone else. And we received a lot of support throughout the Commonwealth. I received a number of nice notes from students and teachers that felt that it was important for the business community to stand up. And so from a cultural perspective, you could say that our soft skills were a little bit of problem solving, a little bit of initiation, taking initiation and communicating to an at-large community the effect that all of this attention is having on a school from a negative perspective. So I hope that addresses some of the question, but that's what came to mind.
Yeah, I think you addressed all of the questions, George. Thank you so much. Gotcha. I'm looking at Kurt and Catherine. I'm assuming next question.
No, I guess
Gotcha.
I was just reading through comments, and someone posted here, race literally is everyone's responsibility. And it's just something that I want to just highlight. As human beings, it really is our responsibility. We're all equal, and we have an obligation, so to speak, to stand up for everyone that's around us, regardless of who we are, race, ethnicity, or sex. So just wanted to, echo those sentiments so everyone can hear them.
Definitely. Thank you, Kurt. And Jen, your chat comments were actually sent to the host and panelists only, if you want to switch that to everyone. All right, Catherine, as leaders, you all have had to develop a discerning eye for people, especially you being in PA, right? What soft skills do you look for when building a team, and how do you validate those skills in the people you select?
Sure. So I look for intrapersonal skill sets, people who are self-aware. If people are recognizing where they are and where they are falling short, they are going to be seeking feedback. They're going to be putting together independently a plan to enhance that skill set. They're going to execute on it. They're going to feel a responsibility of the outcome of growth. I've watched it happen where they become self-aware, they accept it, they grow, and in doing so, their ability to communicate transparently, be accountable to their performance, communicate proactively, be goal-oriented. A huge one is empathetic. People who are self-aware typically then have an empathy towards people who are also struggling. And that is the best possible, for me, person that you can be evaluating and assessing, because when you have a self-aware person who is empathetic and also working towards goals independently, they're going to be going to their manager and management and saying, this is where I feel I'm falling short. What do you think? Is this aligned with what you're seeing? And in the end, your team's going to see it. It builds a connection and relationships for that person. And the outcome, again, is a non-toxic team that is fully functioning. You know, what can I say? It breeds it so that all of a sudden you'll see other team members on board starting to mirror those traits. And I've watched teams grow and go from being maybe a toxic place to being healthier.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for your insights, Catherine. Yeah. George, Kurt? Gotcha. All right, moving on. So Kurt, what sort of culture are you working to build within your immediate team and or broader organization? How are you doing this?
Well, you know, based on what I've learned so far in the industry, companies or organizations culture it's really an ideal, right? And when I say ideal, it's ideal is driven based on mission and vision of the organization. And for our organization, you know, part of our mission is really to help companies evaluate talent based on character and certain traits. So while we're helping companies, it's on us to make sure that we are actually also living to those same standards. So you know, it reminds me of my parents always say, learn to dance at home before you dance on the streets, right? So when I look at the word empathy, for example, that Catherine just mentioned, empathy is one of those pillars that we have as far as culture within our own organization, Pyxai. We have to be empathetic to organizations that have toxic culture, because that's the only way we can essentially help them. So to build strong empathy in an organization, I believe empathy helps us understand each other better as an organization. It helps us to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And in knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses, it also allows us to better communicate, to have better teamwork, collaboration, and coordination amongst each other. And this in turn actually builds trust. And trust is actually our second pillar, of culture that we really hold dear to. And that in itself goes just a really long way in developing relationship as far as relationship building is concerned. And not only relationship building amongst ourselves, but also with our customers, where trust is just so vital. And for the sake of time, the last one I'll mention really is integrity, right? If you're a person with high integrity, it's really hard to trust someone with a low integrity. And I could even go as far as to say, it's even hard for you to have empathy to someone with low integrity. So how do we go about maintaining that in Pyxai? This might sound weird, but I would say first, we try not to hire anyone that we could imagine ourselves hanging out with outside of work. You know, it just works for us. We make sure that the personalities and the work ethics of the individuals that we hire, that they are in line with our belief system, right? And we do We do this because we also know that hard skills can be taught, but soft skills are a little bit harder, as you would explain earlier on, Chris and Angel. We meet daily. A few of the minor things that we do, we meet daily just to over communicate our daily responsibilities, the interdependencies that we have with each other, and we set expectations. And therefore, we keep each other accountable. We also have a really, really strong family type environment on our team because we really, really do care about each other deeply. And then finally, I would say we encourage each other and the team just to be vulnerable with whatever is going on in our lives, regardless if that's work or with our own personal lives. And by doing so, we know we actually have full support of everyone else on the team behind us. And hence that reinsures trust in that family environment that I mentioned.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Kurt, for building an awesome culture over at Pyxai. I actually want to take a step back for a second because there was a specific question here, I believe, regarding Catherine, your second question, right? Carrie was asking, what about negative bias against older workers in the workplace and the impact on the team? Yeah, so.
Yep, sure. So something that's detrimental to organizations is making assumptions. If you think about your business goals and how you're getting toward your business goals, what's the process you're using? Think about the harder skills that you're using. And if something is disruptive or if you're encountering a barrier, something I would ask is you consider the business pieces prior to making an assumption that it has to do with ethnicity, gender, differently abled, veteran status, sexuality, or gender. This way, you're really creating an environment of business goals and executing on what is necessary in your level of responsibilities, the job you have, and the role you keep at that organization. Once you've determined, however, that you are performing those responsibilities and that the barrier you face does have to do with something outside of business goal, then really ask yourself, is this an assumption I'm making, or what data do you have that contributes toward this situation being regarding a cultural barrier or a gender barrier or an ageism situation, something like that. That really will help focus in on what the true barrier is. Having said that, I think we all have knowledge about situations when there is a barrier that is presented and that is not a business reason. When that occurs, make sure that you know that you have data to support it. You possibly have witnesses that have seen it to give you self-awareness and to, again, kind of lend credibility to the situation that, no, this is not just what you're thinking, it's something that someone else sees. And then know what to do. So, you know, whether it's what is the process in your organization? Do you go to your boss? Do you go to your HR business partner? Is there a confidential line that you should be reporting this? And finally, really think out, again, problem solve it and analyze it. Because, for example, if it's your boss or someone in management that you're encountering this barrier with, you need to be really thoughtful and deliberate about who you start reporting it to. Because once you report it, you are going to be asked those questions about data and not the assumptions that you're making. I say that with true empathy and heart because, yes, situations do exist, but start from the beginning of problem solving it out so that you don't get caught flat-footed later without having examples and data to support the claim that you're making. Because ultimately, the claim that you're bringing forth could terminate someone's career. And, you know, that I say that with empathy, is really think out and don't make assumptions. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine, for responding to Carrie. And George, we have arrived at our last and final question. Yes.
So before you go there, I just wanted to go back to Kurt's answer that where he spoke about how he looks at hiring people, and once maybe the hard skills are there, he looks for soft skills and looks for, can I hang out with this person, for instance? And I agree with that. I look at that as well. Once certain minimum qualifications are met, I am all over the soft skills and trying to figure out something unique. And I wanted to say, I was at a meeting yesterday at an organization, and once the meeting got out, I was out in the hallway, and I was standing in front of a small office, and there was a handful of people in there, and everybody was busy at work. And there was this young person in the corner, furthest in the room, and she was on the computer. And she looked up and she said, "Hi, sir, are you being helped?" And when I got back to the office, I said to one of my assistants, I said, "Can you find out who that person is? Because we're looking for an entry-level associate." And she did, and she came back and said, "Yeah, actually, she's interning there." And I said, "Make sure that you call her and see if she has any interest," because she looked up and took the initiative, and that stuck out at me as somebody that was willing to just look up and saw somebody in the hallway, didn't know who they were, no idea, and just said, "Are you being helped?" She didn't really need to. And so I think those kinds of things are the kinds of things you've got to look for that are a little bit beyond the hard skills.
Definitely. Actions speak. Yeah. Thank you so much, George.
Yeah, one thing though on that, I just need to lean in and say, a bias though of relating to someone may create a bias in the assessment process as you assess someone's skills and interview them. Something that's come up in diversity, equity, and inclusion work is that because CEOs are heavily in gender as well as some ethnicities, at times, because they can't relate, at times, judgments and assessments are made on the relatability of the people that they're assessing. And sometimes people are placed in a situation where they cannot relate because of whatever reason. So something that we talk about a lot is focusing in on the assessment of what are the responsibilities of the job, not just education, because again, education sometimes is a factor. Does someone really need a bachelor's degree in order to do this job? And as we all know, sometimes people have not been able to afford an education. However, they have the skills and they also have the experiences that would lead them to the job without the education there. Some people also have grown up in different places where their backgrounds might not lend themselves to, on the surface, being relatable. So I would just say that when you feel that gut reaction of, oh, I can't relate to this person, or I can relate to them, something that we talk about a lot in DEI is that's going to be your initial reaction no matter where you go. And I think we all have it. We can't help it. That's that core piece that you can't change in yourself. It's kind of your system. It's like when you walk in a grocery store and you make an initial assumption on somebody who's standing there. It's a 5-second assumption. It's kind of titled. Beyond that, that's where we become accountable as people in assessing talent. Get rid of that 5-second quick assumption about the person and actually dive in and find out about what have they done in their career, what responsibilities have they held, and then create a dialogue and build up a rapport where the person is being able to be fluid with and feel open in expressing what their experience is. I hope that helps. I just wanted to say I totally understand that we feel comfortable and safe when we relate to each other. It can also sometimes create a barrier, especially in DEI work.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your insights, Catherine. That is actually really helpful. And I feel like that grounded all of us here. Yeah. I know we're at 7 p.m., but hopefully we can stick around for just maybe 2 or 3 more minutes, right? I have my final question for you, George. Looking back at your career, what practical advice and encouragement would you give to young professionals and aspiring leaders in developing their soft skills? Do you have any tips or resources like books, programs, courses, groups that can be useful for the folks attending this event?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have anything too sophisticated like that to offer, Chris. I really, I think back growing up, my mother, who had a 6th grade education from South America, Colombia, used to say to me when I was growing up as a teenager, smile and say hello. It doesn't cost anything. And, it's amazing what a positive first impression you can make with somebody just by smiling or saying hello, regardless of barriers, just doing it. And I feel like for me, it taught me a little bit of, there's a time and a place for everything. And I felt that kind of helped me navigate a lot of social, but also professional environments. And, in the social to get to know people and meet them and how to behave socially and to smile and to say hello and to develop a conversation. And in the professional environment, it really, to me, was a little bit more of the soft skills, hygiene and dress and important communication and listening. Listening is critical. So, to me, a lot of it just goes back to the basics that we learned in grade school. And that's really has helped me along without, getting too deep into the conversation. But I would say those skills that you've learned when you were a kid are super helpful if you just learn how to apply them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, George. I also saw in the chat, Gabriella mentioned that the Say It Skillfully podcast may help as well, right? Catherine, Kurt, if you guys know of anything else, I also agree with you, George. You gave a really great point and insight. Yeah, real world experience is the best.
I would only add in the bystander. If you Google bystander, how to be a good bystander, I believe to Kurt's point about if you see something and it's not right, that we all are responsible to take an action. The bystander training, which is 5 distinct pieces that it's about different people's comfortability. One of them is that you take action. Another is that you might videotape it so that you have a recording of it. Another might be just to stand near the person, not get involved, but give them their support, by being close to them. Another is to take the person away, quite honestly, is to kind of help them move away, but not alone. And then finally, sometimes you do put yourself in a situation with them and literally integrate yourself into whatever situation it is. But that bystander training, it really was helpful for me, especially during COVID times. And that's the most recent example I can think of where, at times it was some uncomfortable interactions happening in wherever you went. And you wanted to be a good advocate, but your own personal comfortabilities might not have been there. And it kind of helped me with getting comfortable with whatever my comfortability was.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing.
So I'll jump in and I'll say, especially given what's in the comment thread, spending time actually with someone a whole lot older than you are is a great way to learn, right? You always go back to your ancestry. What can you learn from people who have been there and done that before you? Hire, if you're in the position to hire elderly people within your company and learn from them, just basic concepts, life in general. There's just a tremendous wealth of knowledge here. And if you can't, go spend a day at a nursing home, right? I really would recommend those. They're as good as any book that you could read.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Kurt. All right, guys. We are going to wrap up now. Thank you so much, George, Catherine, and Kurt, for being a part of our panel. I'm going to share my screen for just 30 seconds, right? Pyxai actually has a workbook. We have a resource that we developed that we're going to send out to everyone who is part of this workshop. Angela, do you want to take it away over here?
Yes, so just like Chris mentioned, we jam-packed a bunch of information with what we determined were the top 6 soft skills we consider to be most in demand right now. And in it, you'll find the definitions, how to improve, and competency levels that we could use for self-development and also to manage others. Thank you so much, guys, for your time today. I know we went a little over 5 minutes, but I really hoped that we impacted your self-development. We're really just trying to plant seeds of self-development so that we all grow, not only at work, but in life. Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you, ALPFA, for hosting this event. Thank you, NAAAP, and thank you, Lawrence Partnership, for making this possible, as well as Pyxai. Hope everyone has a wonderful night. This is the end. Goodbye.